basement. His daddy had an office, and then he had a workshop because he built harpsichords and grandfather clocks. And he had all of these fetuses, all of these babies in bottles up on the...
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. He just had them lined up, at different stages. And
so they were models?
No. They were in formaldehyde. In
humans?
Yes, in clear jars in formaldehyde. Now, to a 6-year-old, 8-year-old,
you're like, whatever.
That 9-year-old, that is wild to look at,
I would, yeah.
Well, it did, it did seem creepy. It was creepy.
I mean, that's a mad scientist thing you're talking about.
But he also had this massive electric train built on a thing with, mountains and it. Oh my gosh, it was just.
You said his last name was Frankenstein? Is that what you said?
So, now Rusty was as poor as we were. To go over to Richard's house was a real treat because he had a big organ. He played the organ in church, and he had a big old organ.
Rusty did?
No.
Did.
His Richard's dad,
Sorry,
the doctor. The doctor was just multi-talented. He was just a multi-talented guy. So, it was always fascinating to go to Richard's house.
It's interesting. We're talking about childhood friends because this was one of Pastor's illustrations yesterday. And I can remember so vividly, like, hanging with my friends and my mom telling me, you got to be back by supper time, that sort of thing. And I would regularly stay too long, and she'd have to walk down the street to John's house and get me to stop playing Sega Genesis and come home, and she'd be mad at me. But those were the days, man.
Yeah.
Like, we were like crawling through storm drains. We were pretending we're the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're crawling through storm drains. Like, we all got together and pulled a manhole cover up and went down.
Did y'all really?
We really did. I
Well,
still can't believe that.
That's like old Fat Albert. You remember he pulls it up and gets a hernia.
Listen, I know I was a little chunky as a kid. You didn't have to go there.
But we played combat.
Oh,
now
yeah,
that's the difference
just
in
beating the tar
generation.
out, yeah.
Black and white TV, combat, World War II, because our dads were in World War II. So that's what we did.
So did you make the kids you didn't like, were they the Germans? Is that how it worked?
No, we really didn't. We just would get out. There was this huge field full of pine trees.
Oh, yeah.
And tall grass.
Yeah.
And we'd get out in that. We started a fire one day. They had to call the fire department. We'd set our yard on fire.
I believe
Off way out to the side, we'd set our yard, and the fire trucks had to come out and put it out. And of course, we got the fire beat out of us.
Did you have live ammunition? Like, how did you start the fire?
No, but this is what we would do. Well, I don't know how we started the fire. It was, I think it was with magnifying glasses.
Yes.
That we were out there trying to get stuff to burn, and it burned.
Yeah.
It caught up. But we had these two black walnut trees, and walnuts will come in that shape. Well, we would carve a little hole down in there, stick a firecracker in it, light it, and throw grenades at each other.
And you get walnut shrapnel hitting each other.
Oh, God. Oh gosh,
that's amazing. That's how boys want to play.
Yeah.
We were just at the beach. I took the kids to the souvenir shop. I said, listen, you can each spend $20. Just go get yourself a good beach souvenir. Well, none of them got anything having to do with the beach, of course. Yeah. My son went immediately to the gun rack. All the old muskets so he got this huge rifle that's way too big for him. So he was excited about that. And he just took turns, like, pointing it at people and hitting people with it.
That's a boy.
It's exactly right.
Today we try to curb all of that, and we're not doing our boys any good.
Yeah.
We really are not. We used to take those big old wooden guns. In fact, when we couldn't buy them, we would go and we would cut one out of wood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then we would, just kind of drill a hole in the end, put the firecracker in that, hold it up. Well, we had an old lady. We were doing that down the streets and back around the other street, and one old lady called the cops. I mean, they came whizzing up this way and whizzing up at the top of the street, and they got out and they saw it was kids. And they came up and said, this lady over here thought y'all had real guns out here, that y'all were shooting at each other. Poor old lady. And all we were doing was, he said, now, that's against the law to have firecrackers.
Where'd y'all get him if it was against the law?
It wasn't against the law. He's just saying that. You could buy firecrackers I could take you to South Carolina right now and buy firecrackers. I can buy M80s. Cherry bombs, all of that, so.
I can never tell. What are the laws with the firecrackers? I feel like everyone's
some states, have laws against it. Other states, like South Carolina, like I'm saying, man, you can go there. They've got places open all the time that you can go buy fireworks.
They sell them I feel like every time, and you go and buy them, and then by the time you get to the 4th of July, you're going to light it, and somebody's there at the party like, well, that's illegal. I'm like, how is it illegal? I bought it right down there next to the fruit stand on Valleydale Road. My dad always drives up there in Maryland, which is like, I don't know, basically a communist country now. So he drives up into Pennsylvania. Hey, call it like I see it. He drives up into Pennsylvania to get up in Amish country, and you can buy some serious fireworks up there. We're gonna go there.
The Amish are selling them up
there?
No,
it's in the midst of the. You have like this old. It's so wild. You'll have like this farmhouse that looks like it's out of the 1800s.
Yeah.
It's immaculately maintained.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it looks very old style. There's no electricity, and then right next to it you'll have like a mini mall kind of thing.
Is that right?
It's wild. Yeah, you'll drive straight out of the farmland and into this town, and like, oh, there's a Target. It's weird. And then in the middle of all that, you have one of those huge fireworks shops. So my dad, they have a huge backyard, and so we're going to have quite the fireworks display.
Oh, good. Well, we always have a huge fireworks display in our backyard. It'll be on the 3rd, but it's not ours. It's the community.
Did we? I feel like we got to come last year.
Y'all
was
been
it
over
last
there.
year? It is amazing, though.
It really is. I think we have to sign. They'll come around to our house sometime right before and get us to sign a document that says that if the house or something catches on fire, we won't hold them responsible. So, no, I'm not going to do that. Y'all have to shut it down. It's against the law, and we don't want to do that,
Good callback. Yeah, that would be funny. You're the guy, the Hoover News or whatever is just incensed. Local pastor denies people the joy of fireworks.
I just tell them if my house catches fire and burns down, I'm moving into the country club over there.
That's a great idea. They got a nice pool. You could probably. Have you ever played golf over there? You probably haven't even done that. You don't even care. Does Miss Debbie still have the swans outside?
No, the swan, in the drought 2 years ago, when they closed the dam, they shut the dam off because they were having to repair the bridge where in that big rain several years ago, a car went over and a husband and wife drowned.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Did you know about this, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was right. They had just dropped their baby off at their grandparents.
Oh my gosh.
And the couple were in the car and they went back and just in all that rain, it just caught them and it washed them over into the lake. Well, it damaged it and they had to rebuild it and they were putting in larger pipes and stuff like that. And so they shut that dam off and
sorry about pastor's language. I know that this is a family podcast.
Yeah. And then the summer was so dry that the whole lake just dried up.
I remember
and
this.
That big old swan, there was a little stream that was the last little part, and he would settle down into that little stream, and he couldn't figure out why he couldn't float on, but he left. He got out and. We've never seen him since.
Moved on to greener pastures.
I don't know what happened. My wife sure misses him, though.
Well, fortunately, she's got a new dog to calm her nerves. Tell us about this. Are you up to 3? How many dogs are in your house?
3. Okay. It's a pack. It's officially a pack now.
Who's the alpha? You're the alpha dog. You're just in
I try
charge.
to be.
Yeah.
You know, but they all just disrespect me so badly. It's just.
But you're used to that.
So it's so sad. You know.
What brought this on? What she just saw?
I don't know. She wanted. I don't know what got it.
That's what brought it on.
Is the dog really cute?
I don't
think
know.
I might have saw it.
It's not a Yorkie like the other two are.
Oh.
It is a
Multi-poo.
multi-poo.
Poo-poo.
Multi-poo-poo, yeah. Because the dad's a poodle and the mother is a multi-poo. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know.
I'm just gonna leave that there. These dogs, the dog breed, it's out of control.
It's a little woman's dog.
The Shih Tzu, the multi-poo. What are we doing here?
You know.
Come on,
I
guys.
don't know.
Creating happiness.
We're creating happiness with the.
Which we're against.
We're fiercely against. We're good Baptists and we're against all this happiness.
Yes.
I love that. That meme of it's the Mark Hamill mean face and it's the Baptist enjoying worship. Just as I am playing in the background and he's like this.
Yeah, you
Baptist
will not move me.
Baptist enjoying worship. That's not the way people are around here, though.
No,
for
thank
the
the Lord.
most part. Because we did the special music yesterday.
It was great.
And praise the Lord, it was so much
All
fun.
the music was so good yesterday. The new song that you sang, when there's nothing like those great old hymns.
Oh,
and,
yeah. We did Holy, Holy, Holy yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. Amanda sang it, and that was so beautiful.
Yes.
And then you came right behind that with that new song, and that's a great song.
It's
I really
cool,
like
isn't it?
that. Yeah, I do. I really like that. And there's old Gibson back over there throwing that hip around, man. He just playing that guitar, just
He was loving
going
life.
at it, son.
Well, Josh Pike reorganized the stage, so now there's more room to move around. We're just going to start falling out and.
And
I'm
then
gonna get my
the
jacket and
drummer
start
last week, I thought was.
We got to take a moment.
Man, I'm telling you, I walked up. I know the guy thought you are a weirdo because I walked up there and looked in that cage at him and thought, what in the world? He doesn't even look like himself anymore.
It's because it wasn't himself.
It wasn't
It
him.
was a completely different person, Pastor.
Don't you know you feel like a fool when you do something like that?
We thought you were just giving him a hard time.
No, I just thought, man, I've never seen a haircut change somebody's look so much in my life.
It was Michael Kirkwood playing the drums.
Michael Copeland is in there just minding his own business.
Well, I thought
he's like the newest member of the band. You thought it was John Claxton.
I thought it was John up in there.
Pastor walks up right to the glass. Like, what is wrong with you, son?
What has changed?
Your hair.
And I'm trying to think.
Copeland-
I'm trying to picture him with that long hair
Copeland
and
is
think.
standing there like, I grew my
I
mustache.
need to write him and tell him I really have not lost my mind. I really thought you were Claxton.
You shouldn't have outed yourself.
But the two guys do look very similar.
Yeah, dark complexion,
Yeah.
dark hair. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, the worst is when Claxton's hair's flowing around, and people start texting Emily like, "Wow, you did great on the drums today," because they got the same hair from behind. That's the worst. So yeah, it's okay, Pastor. Thank you for letting us have that moment.
Oh gosh. I felt like an idiot.
But the people,
I had to go a week before I found that out. I mean, I went the whole week thinking, how can a haircut change your looks that much? I'm telling you. There is never a sane moment in this place. Just never a sane moment in this place. And then last week too, Joe always has a little something she's going to throw in at the end.
Yeah.
And she's got this thing on you, And of course, I just bombed it. I didn't know one cotton picking thing about you.
You had to count my children.
I did. I had to. Well, listen, let me tell you, those last two came so quickly, Faith and hope. Okay. I've got that. Faith, hope. Y'all got to have one more. Name it love.
Maybe
Lovey.
Charity.
Name it Lovey.
Maybe Charity.
Yeah, Charity. That's
We'll
the
see.
old English.
Chrissy and Danny are mission partners from Africa are on furlough. They came in yesterday, and she came up and shook my hand. She's like, every time I see you, you got another kid.
That's for sure.
And I said, well, you're only here once every 3 years or so. So I guess that's true. So anyway, that made me laugh. Well, never mind that on my Pastor Mac quiz, I got what was it, like a 97%? Something like that. But then again,
I was embarrassed. I really was. That I did not know more, that you were supposedly saved through some kind of dream vision that you had.
So let's talk about this for a second. So I had not thought about this in many years. And then it was one of the Watkins boys was being baptized. It was Easton. And I always call him Reese because I guess I'm getting old. Easton. I got to baptize Easton, and he came to tell me his testimony because I like knowing that before we go out there. And he was like, well, this is kind of weird. I guess it was his mom Meredith that told me this is kind of weird, but I had a dream. Mm-hmm. And in the dream, and he explained a bunch of it, and it was a really complex dream, but ultimately it was like he was caught up in a net that saved him from doom. Mm-hmm. And so he prayed the next day to receive Christ, and he's like, that's kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about it. And I was like, honestly, Easton, that's really similar to my experience when I was a kid, because I remember I was 8 years old, and I had this dream where I was running away, and it was strange because it was like a bamboo bridge or some kind of boardwalk, and I was running, and I knew somebody was behind me, that if they caught me, I was going to die. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this. I'd better pray to receive Christ. And I woke up the next day, and I told my mom about it. And I remember my dad, I didn't tell her until the evening. And I remember my dad I think he was at some kind of church elders meeting or business meeting or something, and he wasn't there. And I still feel bad I didn't wait till he came home. But yeah, that was the day. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting?
It is. People's testimonies are fascinating to me. I love people to share their testimonies.
Well, and I know that I understand that people are kind of divided about whether the Lord still works through dreams. Obviously.
Well, listen, let me tell you something. They are occurring all through the Islamic world.
I keep hearing about this.
Oh yeah, it's very real that in their dreams they will have, and it comes back to the same thing. Either a man in white who has a wound in his hand who's reaching out to them, or somebody that's reaching out and giving them a red book, that there's a book in red that they've not read. It's a red, R-E-D book.
Red,
yeah. And then, but all of those kind of things, that is not unusual at all to have a Muslim, when you sit down and talk to them, begin to describe to you that they've had dreams. Yes, I believe it. I don't have any doubt. There are things that happen, especially out on the mission field, that we don't even think about here, of how God is moving to reach people.
Have we talked about this before? Why don't you think more of that happens here?
Because I think we feel as if we're too sophisticated. The other thing is the gospel is so readily available.
Sure.
There are churches on every corner. There are people all over the radio and television, and now the internet with podcasts and stuff. Bibles are everywhere. Christian books are everywhere. The gospel is so accessible here that we have gotten to the place to where we just basically ignore it.
Yeah.
Whereas in other countries, to get a hold of a Bible is one of the most precious things for them, whether they are believers at that point or not.
One of the things that I've seen increasingly for our role and responsibility as church leaders, and even for our life group leaders, for people that come in and they're new or immature in their faith, it's a part of our job to help them separate the wheat from the chaff. Mm-hmm. You can buy these quote-unquote Christian books at the grocery store, but you need to let us help you, guide you towards the true faith.
Yeah, good to read, something that's,
Because we have this glut. There's so much.
you can slap your name on there and say your best life now. You know?
The best. Golly.
And
well, and then
people scarf it up.
There's all that stuff like I died and for 30 minutes I was in heaven, stuff like it's just like, come on, guys, that's not the point.
No. There are some good things that are out there.
There's wonderful things.
Yeah.
You reading anything you want to recommend before we jump into the message?
What is it?
Here?
Gentle and
Gentle and Lowly.
Yes. Have y'all read that? I don't know why I have not heard of it, but our dearest friends, Rick and Nancy Bird, Nancy was talking about the other night, and I came home and I ordered it and started reading it. So we've got so many people that are in surgery and having surgery and fixing to head off to surgery, and I'm getting messages by people. We've got so many we need to keep in our prayers.
Well, we'll let you get back to them. This shouldn't take more than another hour or so.
Okay, good.
And you had us praying for people yesterday.
Yesterday,
Miss Susan, I'm still praying for her.
Now, right now at this moment, Margie Eubanks is in surgery in Houston.
I didn't even know about
I did
that.
not see. I didn't know either. So I called Gary and I had prayed with him. He said she's been in there about an hour, about a 6-hour surgery. So
we need to talk offline about that. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, we can do that. And then Dr. Paul Moore had a heart attack. I went to see him yesterday afternoon late, and there are others that are.
I'm so glad that he's still part of the community.
Yeah, he's a great old guy. He really is. He's a great fella, up in his 80s. And he's still planning work to do. He told me, they're going to do a heart cath today on him, and he said a week from today, he's supposed to go at Pensacola and do a video of how he does senior adult ministry. They were going to do a video of him doing that. So I told him, I said, well, you got to get well, get up. Lord's got stuff for you to do.
Just tell him take up his bed and walk.
Yep.
Take up your bed, take it to Pensacola.
And I do that so many. I walk in a hospital room and I look at him and I say, look, pick up your bed and walk.
Just to see if it'll work.
They generally laugh. Oh, preacher, don't make me laugh.
I know, right? It hurts when I laugh.
laugh.
Now you're going to laugh so you don't cry, situations like that. Well, you reckon we should talk some about this message?
Yeah, we can. And I'm telling you what's the truth. I have since late yesterday afternoon been working through some stuff for this coming Sunday.
That's what
did I preach out of yesterday? John 17, wasn't it?
You were doing the high priestly prayer.
Yeah, that's right.
We already talked a little bit about. So you said it was one of those Holy Spirit moments because it came to you as you were preaching.
Yeah, it was.
But
it did.
just boiling down what Jesus is saying.
Yeah.
He's praying to the
Well,
Father.
there are two things in this passage that just gripped me.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen in this. One is verse 22, where he says, Jesus speaking to the Father says, the glory which you've given me, I've given to them.
Right.
And I can think about that too, like, as a boy, Dad would give you something and, Dad would come in and say, well, what did you do with so-and-so? Well, Dad, my friend Rusty didn't have one, and so I gave it to him. And it's like Jesus is saying to the Father, I just think of this, of Jesus who has lowered himself to take on human flesh. Right. Now talking to the Father, because I don't do anything that I don't see the Father doing. If the Father doesn't tell me, I don't do. And here he is, and he's saying, well, Father, you gave it to me, but I've given it to them. They needed it. They didn't have it. You remember Opie when they were taking up money for the underprivileged children to buy them coats, and he didn't give but like a penny, and his dad's fussing at him. Well, he was saving up money to buy his little girlfriend a coat. That's what he was saving the money for. Well, Dad, she didn't have one, and so and so Jesus is saying, well, Father, I gave it to them. And that we receive the glory that the Father had given to the Son. Now that just blows my mind.
That's so good.
And the other thing
it should blow our minds.
Father, I want them also whom you've given me to be with me where I am.
Yeah.
I want them to come home with me.
Come on
when
home.
I come home, can I bring them home with me?
So that was that, and that's where we started, because you're talking about, like, Dad, can my friends come home with me, that sort of thing. It's just the purity in that, the innocence in that, the joy in that. And the one thing, before I make you talk about your message coming up, that I've missed this. For some reason, I've missed this through the years, is that Jesus is praying all of this right in front of them.
Yes.
They're watching
They're
him
listening
pray.
to
They're
him.
listening to this.
They're still in the upper room. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the ravine Kidron, where there was a garden in which he entered with his. So he's praying this either in the upper room or along the way. He stops and he prays this, and they're there and they hear him.
And you connected that to just because we've all felt, Lord willing, we've all felt this, where you have a friend, you have a loved one, you have a mentor, someone, they sit next to you and they pray for you by name.
Yeah.
And how meaningful that is.
They call your name in prayer. I suppose that there are some people out there, some husbands, some wives, that have never heard their mate pray their name.
You said something,
or children that never heard their parents pray their name, call their name before the Lord. I've heard my wife many a time pray for me.
That's beautiful.
She'll stop and say, "Oh Lord, help him!
Help him love these dogs, Lord."
She will. She does, and it is a tremendous thing. I don't know how to explain it, to hear the person that you love the most in this life pray for you. And I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to, tonight at the supper table, just do that.
I try to do, and that was a good convicting note for me, because that's something I've done in the past at the supper table, but it's been a while, so I really want to get back to that. You also mentioned that Jesus, like the subject matter of his prayer, is very much in the direction of unity. He wants people to be unified. You talked about how, by God's grace, our church is unified right now.
Yeah.
That's something, Pastor, I pray this especially for families, and I guess maybe I took it from this passage years ago. I can't remember, but I pray for unity for our church and unity for the families of the church just all the time. It's one of those things that maybe I'm a broken record. I don't know, or maybe I'm the persistent widow, but that's just something that I find myself.
Well, unity in a home will strengthen and pull a family together. It will have a tremendous impact in not just the life right then, but in the life of the children down the road.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And disunity, what that does in a family, what that does in the life of individuals, it promotes a disunity in their own heart.
Yeah.
They're pulled between, how do I behave? What do I do? Do I do this? Do I do that? So
and that has a ripple effect in the community.
Oh gosh, yes, it does. We're living with the result of explosive disunity in homes throughout this country.
Yeah, well, and in the world.
And you wonder why, and I think it would probably be a great PhD project or dissertation.
I'll get to work
to look. Yeah, do that. And have it on my desk by next week. At least 300 pages. On the fact, why was it unity that Jesus prayed for us so much?
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with the fact that unity flows out of love.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've been determined. Of course, my dad was determined. I saw this. We're family. We're here together. We care for each other. We do anything for each other, that kind of thing.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah, well, that was basically right. We knew that. And I've tried so hard with our family, our little family, to make it united. We're together. You will love your sister. Right. You will love your brother.
Right.
Kind of deal. And pull those grandchildren into all of that as well, so that they have a sense now of unity, a sense of, and it's very important in our family's life, because we've got some that are children now from other marriages. We've got some that
blended families.
They're blended families. I want them to feel a part of who we are.
It strikes me that part of the unity that Christ is praying for is coming out of the unity he feels in the Trinity. The unity he feels with the Father. He's already talked about the unity with the Spirit. So yeah, he just wants, it's what you said before. He's passing on that glory and unity that he's been gifted from the Father.
Yep. We are to model that.
So talk to us about where you want to go this week. You've hinted at this. I don't know, maybe we need to do, I'm tempted to do like a different bumper or something, because Pastor's going to start talking about the Jesus that nobody talks about.
The Jesus that nobody talks about. Well, I'm
excited about this.
I think, I'm not sure. But I think because there's so many passages that deal with this, and I'm thinking, do I want to preach 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks? And after I preach this first week, everybody's going to say, that's enough. We're done. We got it.
Are you going to do that Daniel thing that you were talking about?
Yes, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Right. And that's coming up. Well, I don't know, I may preach this passage. This is what I thought last night when I went to bed. Okay, this is the passage, but I've gotten up this morning and I'm looking at other passages. By the way, I'll do this. I'll set this up, and it's kind of, if I preach this passage, this is what I'll do Sunday. How I will do it.
Oh, okay, good.
Jesus in chapter 11 of Luke.
Luke 11, got it.
He comes, and he says, when an unclean spirit goes out of a man, it passes through waterless places seeking rest. Not finding any, it says, I'll return to my house from which I came. I'm going to go back to the light. And when it comes, it finds it swept, put into order. And it goes and takes along 7 other spirits, more evil in itself, and they go in and live there, and the last state of that man becomes worse than the first.
And as you said, this applies to your wife's dogs as well.
Yes, yes. Finds the dogs worse than they were at first. There's that. In that same chapter, Jesus is invited to the home of a Pharisee to have lunch.
Interesting.
And the Pharisee had been listening to all of this. The Pharisees had listened to all of this.
Oh.
This one Pharisee obviously didn't have a lot of problem with what Jesus said, so he invited him to his house for lunch, but what threw him off was that Jesus didn't wash his hands.
When he came in.
When he came in. And so he looks at him and he says, I'm just shocked.
Yeah.
You didn't wash your hands like the ceremonial washing of Israel.
Yep.
And the Lord said to him, now listen, out of the blue, this meek and mild and lowly Jesus.
He's only about love. He's all about love.
Goes into a
tirade. A
righteous
rant.
Anger.
Yeah.
Now, you Pharisees, and he starts there, and he goes through this whole thing here. You've heard, these are not all the woes that Jesus pronounces that you find in Matthew, but this woe to you Pharisees, verse 43, woe to you Pharisees, verse 44, verse 46, woe to you lawyers as well, which they were not lawyers in the sense that we understand lawyers today, but these were, it's what the Catholic Church calls canon law.
Oh, okay.
They were lawyers of the Scriptures.
Got
it. They understood that. Verse 47, woe to you. So it's just kind of, and I mean Jesus gets on a roll, and he just gets furious here.
And this is pretty much what you said to everybody at the SBC last week.
No, I didn't. I never, listen, my wife would tackle me before I could ever get to a microphone. I have gone before. I just said, this is ridiculous. I'm getting up and I'm going to, and she says, you're going to sit right there.
So
don't you go to that microphone. Yeah. You're just going to, you stay above all of that. And of course, you know what? She's always right.
She's always right.
Always right.
Whether you like it or not.
But this is here's the controversial thing. And for folks that are not Christian and for people that are not in the church, they're going to find this is strange that Jesus and his harshest words come to the most religious.
Yes. Yeah.
He doesn't have a harsh word for the woman caught in adultery.
Right.
He doesn't have a harsh word for the woman at the well who has, she's just sleeping through the whole village.
Right.
He doesn't have a harsh word for the rich young ruler who comes to him and wants to know. And he walks away, and I think it's Mark who says, and Jesus loved him.
Yes.
And Jesus was sad that he walked away, that he left. It's only the extreme religious that Jesus
has the heart
just goes off on.
Now, and yeah, wow.
And let me tell you, religious people don't like for you to tell them this kind of stuff. It's hard for us to take because, and they're the only ones he ever calls hypocrites.
Right.
And he gets on to them about their hypocrisy and about their gossip and about how they are teaching the people in the next generation how to take God out of everything and just go through rote ritual and ceremony.
Right. The meaning behind it is lost.
Yes.
It's simply
completely.
we must follow the letter.
And this is what I think Jesus was doing when he told this story about the demons coming in, and it's worse than before, is that the Pharisees now had come in at this transition time in Israel, and they were going to reform the nation.
But they've made it worse.
But they have, they were worse than all the Old Testament idolaters.
Oh, that's
amazing. That's why he's going to say in here, your fathers killed the prophets.
That's right.
And now you go and you
lift them up.
You dress up their graves. You're painting their graves white, and you're make sure it's clean and putting flowers out there, whatever. And he says the fact of the matter is you're worse than they are.
Wow.
They were,
And they were really bad.
They were really bad.
I mean, you read...
They killed the prophets. And then Jesus says, listen, you're going to do the same thing. So what do they do with Peter? They're going to throw Peter in prison.
That's right.
What are they going to do with Paul? They're going to run Paul off, till Paul just says, I'm done with you Jews. I'm just going to the Gentiles now.
And that's just what's recorded in Scripture.
Yep. So anyway,
wow.
it's kind of fascinating. We don't look at this stuff that often.
I'm glad you're looking. It's important because the foolish and incomplete apologetic that the world tries to use against Christ is that, well, he's only about love.
Yep.
He's only about inclusiveness.
Yep.
He's only about affirmation.
Yep.
And here you see, no, Jesus is a fully orbed character.
Mm-hmm.
He's not only about one thing. As God, he can be only about everything, right?
Yep.
And here he is calling out what is the true sin.
And I mean, he unleashes on them.
Well,
really
and the
does.
hardest part for me in that passage is recognizing that there's a Pharisee in me.
Oh, that's the whole thing, I think, of why the Holy Spirit led, these gospel writers to put that in there.
Yeah.
Is that, and that then you go back to, this is why we need the Lord's Supper. We need a time where we stop and we've got something tangible in our hand that makes me think this is bread, but this represents the body of Christ.
Yes.
It's not the body of Christ, but it stands for it. I have to think about that. And this stands for the blood of Christ. And I've got to examine myself. Am I worthy of this sacrifice?
You're not.
Or, like the Pharisees, I don't need that because I'm righteous enough.
Yeah. Somehow, I've sanctified myself.
I'm righteous
I've somehow
enough.
made myself worthy. Poor guys, they missed it. I pray we don't miss it.
Me too.
Well,
we've got winshape here.
Winshape is here all week.
My suggestion is don't go outside these doors.
Yeah, we're just going to stay here. Fortunately, like we said before, this is at least 20,000 square feet of luxurious space.
Magnificent studio in here.
Pastor and I are going to go recline at table and eat a wonderful feast like Jesus did.
Yeah.
So winshape. Hey, should we tell the funny thing about winshape?
Tell it.
Here's the funny thing about winshape. Being in the yes,
we have no bathrooms.
There's no bathrooms for the staff to use because they're all reserved for the children, and we're not going to go. If there's signs up,
you can't go in there.
It's like an insurance liability. We can't go in there, so we're just holding it. So pray for us, and we'll see. We'll see you back here Sunday.
I'm just going to say goodbye, Pastor.
All right, goodbye.
That's what they brought that equipment in.
Yeah.
Now, you know they got some equipment if they bring